Hey guys, so I finally decided to bench my Exsanguinate build. It was meant to be just to farm like yellow tier maps, maybe into red tier maps, and I wanted to test multiple things with this Exsanguinate, Petrifying Blood, and playing with the new low life. As you can see, I have less, well, just barely 3000 life, and I wanted to see how tanky it feels. I'm also using a couple other things. I'm using Loris Lantern, which does help, I guess, mitigate the damage. My items are pretty cheap. This is like a budget build. I think it's like less than 1 exalt. I'm still using Tabula, and in most of the clips I was still using level 19 gems. I bought tier 16 Minotaur map just to test how this build fares in the tier 16 maps, because I don't even have red tier maps yet. I leveled the gems to level 20 right before Minotaur, so only in Minotaur map I had level 20 gems. And the overall impression is, I guess I would say, it's not really worth going Petrifying Blood and low life unless you get items and other modifiers that give you something really good when you are on low life, like Loris Lantern Ring, which makes damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while you are on low life, which means they roll damage number twice and picks the lower number, and that's the damage that you get hit by. And of course I'm also using Pain Attunement for 30% more spell damage. Also, a funny thing, I bought tier 16 Minotaur map just to bench test the build. Right before the map, I said, just please don't have Harvest, just don't have Harvest. I don't want to do Harvest, don't want to mess with that, just want to run it and be done. And guess what? It had Harvest. And it also has Zana. And Zana gives me 2 Harvest options, 2 maps with Harvest. And I thought, no, I really don't want to do Harvest. So I picked the one with no Harvest. And guess what? It still had Harvest. And guess what? Harvest gave absolutely nothing. Well, I didn't really care about the Harvest nerfs, but now Harvest feels so uninteresting, and just, oh, you get 2 options. You craft that or you craft that. You craft that twice and that's it. It feels such a waste of time to do Harvest right now. This is just a quick rant. So, okay, so first thing I want to talk about is the Petrifying Blood. To quickly explain it like very briefly, basically with Petrifying Blood you can mitigate up to 40% of the damage taken completely if you have a high enough regen. However, you don't actually have to reserve life. It kind of fixes your life at 50%, which is new low life, and unless you use life flask, you will always stay at or below 50% of your health. And regen leech will heal your bottom half, and life flask will heal your upper part of your life. So you can always stay in low life. But the tricky thing was, like, when you are used to having full life, and when you see your life jumps down a bit, you kind of instinctively hit the life flask. But when you are running with your half life orb full, the other half empty, it always feels like you lost life, and you keep looking at your life pool, and it was so unusual, and it took some time getting used to. But in the end I decided to just reserve my life, and when I see my life moving, then I know that I do need to hit the life flask. With Petrifying Blood, the damage is done in two parts. 60% of the damage is going to be done normally, just hit damage is going to be done normally, just you set up, take the damage, and 40% of the remaining damage is going to be done over 4 seconds. So it turns into damage over time. If you take lightning damage, 1000 lightning damage, you're going to take 600 lightning damage immediately, and then the remaining 400 lightning damage over 4 seconds. And if you have enough regen, if you have 100 life regen, for example, in that case you're gonna completely mitigate that 40% of the damage done over duration. If you reserve 50% of your life, you lose half of your effective HP, but then you mitigate 40%. Okay, I'm not sure if mathematically that is how I explain, but just thinking about it, you reserve half of your life, so you lose 50% of your effective HP. But then you mitigate only 40% of the damage, so you are losing effective HP no matter what. Like I said, unless you are getting other things that benefit low life, like Loris Lantern, which does add mitigation from hits, I don't think that it's worth using Petrifying Blood. Another very bad thing is Corrupting Blood and just damage over time, because only hits. Petrifying Blood only benefits hits. The degen is still the same. However, you only have half of your life to react to degen. So if you if normally you have, let's say, 6,000 life and you start taking degen, you got your life starts draining from full before you notice. You have basically more time to notice your life draining and react to that. But when you are on low life or 50% of your life, you have twice less time to react. So almost all of my deaths are to degen. Almost all of them. Actually, I died 22 times. And I'm level 89. And probably I would say more than 50% of those deaths from degen are because I did not even notice that I am degening. You can kind of fix that, but you will need to get corrupting blood immunity on a jewel implicit, which is expensive if you also want to get with life. You can also get Pantheon power to reduce the either chaos damage taken or physical damage taken over time while moving. So in the end, I think it's not really worth it unless you, like I said, get some modifiers that benefit on low life, like Loris Lantern, Pain Attunement, maybe something else. So yeah, but I actually felt pretty tanky, and like I said, I am using Tabula. I do have a body armor that I wanted to use, but I was unable to 6-link this body armor. Now, like I said, my main issue is my damage. If you look at PUB, my combined DPS, this is with the 10 Corrupting Fever stacks and 3 stacks of Exsanguinate, which isn't always gonna happen. So my damage is around 1 million. This is when enemies are standing on while lighting traps and they are shocked, but it does not calculate punishment course, and I am using punishment. Actually, I could instead of punishment quickly. So yeah, with vulnerability it would be around 1 million DPS. But I actually prefer to use punishment because punishment, if enemies hit you while they are cursed with punishment, they are also gonna be debilitated for 2 seconds, and debilitation also reduce their damage done. So punishment also works like a defensive course as well, but enemies have to be below 50% of HP to start taking more damage, and it does a lot more damage. Of course, enemies take 82% increased damage while on low life. That is pretty massive, but it does not calculate in PUB for some reason. Also, it does not calculate the Loris Lantern, so I'm not sure of my effective HP actually. It also doesn't calculate properly the Petrifying blood. So my damage isn't great. 1 million DPS did not feel good against tier 16 Minotaur or Phoenix. But the tankiness actually surprised me. I can do Ultimatum pretty comfortably actually. And I think just recently they nerfed the amount of monsters you get in Ultimatums. Previously it was just absolutely underwhelming. Like, I once had a full circle of monsters and I couldn't even take a step anywhere. It was full of monsters. Even in tier 16 Ultimatum, it didn't feel scary. Although I didn't really do it on a high awakening level. This is only awakening 3 for now, and I didn't run very dangerous map mods. But then again, like I said, my items are pretty cheap, and I'm still wearing Tabula. So this build is Scion, Gladiator, Guardian. Gladiator does give physical damage over time, more physical damage over time, and block. And Guardian just gives a bit of tankiness basically, and also you get onslaught, which you do need. You do need movement speed, and you do need cast speed to make this build feel not sluggish, because Exsanguinate base cast time is 0.8 seconds, which is pretty slow, very slow indeed. One of the slowest casting skills. And I am using with Unleash and Chain. Chain is absolutely a must with Exsanguinate unless you're doing non-self-cast. If you're doing self-cast, you absolutely have to use Chain. Unless you have like massive explosions maybe, but I doubt it. Chain is just so good for Exsanguinate. I think Unleash still is better than without Unleash, because with Unleash, let's say you got 3 stacks and you basically cast 4 Exsanguinates. Only 3 can stack, but you still hit the single target 4 times, which means you can also apply 4 Corrupting Fever stacks, which overall I think is just smoother and more damage. Now, I guess I'm gonna go over my items quickly. For weapon, I chose to use Cold Iron Point because this is just a simple solution. Plus 3 to physical spell skill gems affect Exsanguinate and Corrupting Fever. For the body armor, like I said, you could go with Shaper's body armor, plus 1 to active skill gems. You could also go with plus 2 Corrupted Tabula with like plus 2 duration gems for more damage. I also bought plus 1 to maximum number of Sentinels of Purity. Normally you would only have 4 sentinel minions from Herald of Purity, but then you need a 5th one, so like Golem, but Golem is a separate thing and it would die often. So I just chose to use that just to get Onslaught from Guardian, basically. On a shield, ideally I wanted Shaper's Shield with recover percentage life when you block, but that one was like 40 years, just the mod itself at the start, so I just found this shield and I just kept using. This gives flat life when you block, which isn't as good. The more life you get, the less effective this becomes. This is tier 2 mod and it could roll, I believe, up to like 100 life when you block. Amulet, ideally you would also want physical damage over time multiplier or bigger spell damage, or +1 to physical spell skill gems, but those are expensive, so this is a very cheap option. Rings just get life, and then Lotus Lantern. I think it's worth it. You get resistances, you get movement speed, you get chaos resistance, which is great, and you also mitigate hit damage. Boots, nothing special. This is just the boots that I found pretty good because we also have chaos res. Gloves can be different as well. I went with the physical damage over time multiplier because that affects Exsanguinate and Corrupting Fever, but you could also use Essence to craft. Socket gems deal 30% more damage over time, and Socket Corrupting Fever inside it. That would be like a 5th link for Corrupting Fever, but then the gloves would not give damage to Exsanguinate. If you want to focus more on Corrupting Fever, and in the previous video I talked about ball lighting, how good it is with the Corrupting Fever for the clear speed, and you could do that combo. You could use ball lighting with GMP and Unleash, and then just have a pseudo 5 link Corrupting Fever for the clear speed, and then you wouldn't need Chain for the Exsanguinate. Now the build, as you can see, is also very basic, just Resting Stash with life and res, but you could use something like Stygian wise. There are many options. So basically what I'm saying is that you can improve this build quite a lot more. Now for the gems, Exsanguinate is linked with Brutality, Unleash, Efficacy, Control Destruction, and Chain, and I swap Chain for Swift Affliction against bigger single targets. Then Corrupting Fever is linked with Efficacy, Brutality, and Swift Affliction. Then I have War Banner and Petrifying Blood and Malevolence. I'm gonna mention other auras in a moment. Herald of Purity linked with Arrogance, Blind, and also have Ball Lightning Trap. And also got Steel Skin on left click linked with Arcane Surge and Flame Dash. So Arcane Surge does give more spell damage and cast speed, so it does affect Exsanguinate, and it does help smooth out the build a bit. And finally I got Punishment, but you could use like Vulnerability on hit Ring if you can afford that. Now regarding auras, I chose these auras just because this matched the mana reservation and the life reservation that I wanted. So Herald of Purity reserves 25% of your mana, and if you use it with Arrogance, it reserves almost exactly 50%, which is perfect, which is exactly what you want. I just wanted to keep my life at half, reserve it, don't worry about the upper part. Herald of Purity does give 13% more physical damage. This is at level 19. And War Banner, the nearby enemies take 12% increased physical damage. Now you can also use Flesh and Stone linked with Maim, then nearby enemies will be taking like 30 or 32% increased physical damage, but Exsanguinate does reach pretty far and enemies are not gonna be standing close to you, so you're actually gonna be losing damage by using that if enemies are further away from you. To have more consistency and to do more damage to enemies that are further away from me, I chose to not use Flesh and Stone with Maim and chose to use Herald of Purity. You can also use Pride Aura, but Pride Aura is gonna require 4 seconds for enemies to be standing close enough to take full effect. So the passive skill tree, this is like I said, Scion. There's nothing too special. I'm getting a bit of skill duration, getting the physical damage nodes and the physical damage over time multiplier. I thought I'm gonna be picking more nodes from that cluster jewel, so I picked the 6 passive points, but ideally you would want 4 passive points with 2 notables. One is called Rant and another one was, I can't remember what it's called, but another one was also giving big physical damage over time multiplier. But that one is also pretty expensive. And for the small cluster jewel, I wanted to get more life venue block, so I chose this one. And like I said, I am capped attack block and almost capped spell block, and without even using any flasks. And this is because of glancing blows, by the way. Jewels, nothing too special. Actually, now regarding the jewels, one thing to note: increased damage over time, specifically for my build, is actually better than like 3 or 4% physical damage over time multiplier. And then you want life, increase damage over time, and if you can afford, get like spell damage or get, well, physical damage over time multiplier as well on top of that, but that would be expensive. One thing to note: when doing Labyrinth, please turn off Petrifying Blood and whatever aura reserves your life. It's absolutely horrible to do Uber Lab or any lab or trials with spikes and Roombas and stuff like that when you are reserving 50% of your life, because degen is gonna be very noticeable, and you're not gonna have enough time to react to degen. The next build that I'm gonna be doing is gonna be with the Adzeris Rule Staff. I already planned the build. It's basically the Adzeris Flame Blast and Adzeris Stormcall skills on rotation. So it's gonna be interesting to do a build around this staff. And one last thing, I wanna also promote the Nexus store that I have. If you want to purchase some MTXs in Path of Exile, most content creators now have Nexus store. And when you purchase through the Nexus store, you don't pay any extra, but the content creators get a small cut from that, so you're also supporting content creators. So if you wanna support me, also check my Nexus store, which is nexus.gg/Woolfio. So yeah, you can support me while purchasing your Path of Exile MTXs. So that's gonna be it for now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.